morning, good afternoon, good evening, or whatever time you're listening to this show. My name is Edson Ochoa, one of the co-hosts of this podcast. Welcome to the Down in the Valley podcast. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got very little time. Thank you, NVIDIA encoders, for or the new one, to making it kind of difficult. Having some issues with the live stream, but we're back, starting the best as ever. Let's go ahead and say hello to our co-host and good friend of mine, Jacob Young. Jacob, how you doing?
Doing great. Looking forward to talking some soccer. Should be a good show, and there's much to talk about.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get right to it, because there are a lot of topics to talk about. We've got two games, obviously, that we need to talk, each with its individual quotes that we want to kind of give our thoughts on. And as well, we also got the upcoming match against Phoenix Rising, why it's important for the playoff fight for both teams, actually. And of course, our tried and true predictions. Just a quick reminder, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, be sure to check out the audio podcast as well on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. And if you're watching or you're listening through the audio podcast in any of those platforms that I mentioned, every Wednesday or Thursday, depending if there's a midweek game or not, like there was this week, we go live at 8:30 p.m. on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Down in the Valley. So let's get right to going, guys. So the first game that we want to talk about, Jacob, definitely has to be the home match against Louisville City, the team that is currently number one in the Eastern Conference, a team that was coming into that match number one, looking to kind of fight against San Antonio FC, trying to salvage a home field advantage in the case of a potential final for the USL Championship final. Unfortunately, San Antonio has just been too good, but they were still trying to fight something. We're at least trying to salvage to be able to keep that home field advantage in all of the Eastern Conference playoffs. So they were coming in to RGV FC for the first time ever. There really wasn't a lot to know much regarding how they were going to play against RGV FC, but you knew right off the bat that this was going to be a very, very difficult team to go up against. And so I know, Jacob, I don't remember exactly. I don't know if you remember your prediction for this match, but I know for myself, I know I had said that a win was doable, but I felt like I would be pretty content with a draw at HB Park.
Yeah, exactly. I don't remember mine right off the top of my head. I believe I said like 3-2. I thought it would be scoring. If I do recall, that there would be a lot more scoring than it happened, and for sure was content with the draw at home against the number one team in the Eastern Conference. And of course, I know that we did our post-match talk about the game, but it was going to be an intense match no matter how you put it. Especially RGVSC would have had to have been on their toes from the start of the match to the end of it in order to even get 3 points.
So, the interesting part about this match, and I'm not necessarily talking about the 22 players on the field, but for both of us, we had a different perspective in this game. I know we decided to join with Alfredo and Bella Michaels from the local channels, the local reporters, down at field level, over by the south side of the stadium in the home side, if you want to be specific. We joined them there, so we got a different perspective. We were closer to the field. We didn't have a good vantage point to see what was going on, like on the field as far as tactically, but we were able to hear a lot of the interactions between players, players and referees, and all of that. And I think that's going to be, keep that in mind, because we are going to be mentioning a couple of things that we noticed in the game through there. But right off the bat, Louisville came into this match. They were on fire. Like I mentioned, they were still playing for something, despite them already being in first place in the Eastern Conference, despite them already clinching playoffs since a while back. So they came with RGV, and it seemed like they analyzed RGV FC really, really well, Jacob, because you remember how many times, and we talked about it in the post-game reaction, you know how many times we talked and said that the Toros struggled whenever teams played the high pressure against them.
Yep.
And that's exactly what Louisville City did. If they raised their lines really high up. They put a lot of pressure on Christian Pinzon, on Jonas Fjellberg. They they pretty much isolated them too from the rest of the team. I think one of the things that kind of caught my eye, and that I had rarely seen from Christian Pinzon since he arrived with RGVFC, was the fact that he could not deal with the battle against. Let me see if I can get that player's name from Louisville City. I think his last name was Perez. Manny Perez. He could not win the one-on-one against him. So if you noticed, and I think I mentioned it, him and Jonas Fjellberg, Christian Pinzon and Jonas Fjellberg switched sides. You saw at times in the first half, Christian Pinzon rather go and attack on the right side of the field, Jonas Fjellberg on the left side. It was just desperation because he couldn't get past Manny Perez and get some good opportunities. I mentioned to you as well that, you know, there were times where Christian Pinzon would receive the ball and he'd already have one or two players, you know, right on his back, you know, not allowing him to turn around and create the opportunities that we see a lot, or we have seen a lot, we have grown accustomed to from Christian Pinzon.
Yeah, exactly. It was... I mean, it was one of, like you said, it seemed like Louisville City had our number from the start of this match. And it's very difficult to feel so, well, just relieved with that. What I mean to say is it's frustrating when teams have RGVFC's number, because Wilmer had said for one match when we played against no, it wasn't San Antonio, but who did we play that was like super good? I think it was Colorado Springs. That's right. We ended up beating Colorado Springs. What did Coach Wilmer say about that game? We studied so much about Colorado Springs that we had a perfect game plan when we went out onto the field to make sure that the 5-0 or the 5-0 game wouldn't happen. Or 5-3 game, whatever that scoreline was. Mm-hmm. My point to that is, all of a sudden, you come into playing against Louisville City and you look lost out there. Besides the fact, the great thing that you pointed out is that two players, Christian Pinzon had to switch, and Jonas had to switch sides because they weren't playing well one of them wasn't playing well in their position. And so that became a lot more troublesome. And RGVFC, the possession was even. But at that same time, especially in that first half, RGVFC what we saw was too many balls to the left side, and they'd get trapped and allow Louisville City to gain that possession and have an opportunity to score on Tyler Derrick. And Derrick had to make a couple of key saves in that first half before the goal.
Yeah. And so the thing about it is that when you see Louisville do the high pressure, being able to steal the ball away easily from RGVFC, dominate the possession, what you saw from Louisville City was just like the freedom for Manny Perez and the other outside back to go up and help on the attack. It was like it was an avenue for Louisville City. Like all the time, you would see Manny Perez come up and help out on the attack, try to get a cross towards their strikers, and it was just too much freedom that we saw from Louisville City. There was a lot of defensive confusion. There was a lot of times where you would see Wahab Akwe and even Gringo Torres like yelling at each other, like at other teammates, telling them, what the hell are you doing? Why are you not going over to him? Yada, yada, yada. And it's like everybody got frustrated with each other and they lost their concentration. It's always said, like in Spanish, you got to have your feet hot and your head cold. Like you need to be cold-headed, level-headed when you're playing the game, because once you get caught hot-headed, more often than not, you lose your concentration and you just focus too much on why you're mad and not necessarily what's happening on the pitch. But overall, Louisville City, it was just a matter of time before Louisville City was going to get the opener. They had a crossbar. They had a lot of other times where Tyler Derrick had to make a save as well. But Louisville City continued to press on and cause a lot of havoc on RGV FC. The goal ends up coming off of a mistake thanks to that high pressure. It was a ball back towards Jonathan Ricketts that really wasn't well placed. So Jonathan Ricketts had to run back, get the ball. He tried to, give it back to Tyler Derrick. Tyler Derrick, receives it. He tries to clear it, but he didn't really have a lot of time to see, okay, where's my teammate? Where can I give it? Because he already had a player running towards him. So as soon as he receives the ball, he clears that ball away and ends up falling straight towards the feet of Paulo Del Piccolo, right? Paulo Del Piccolo sends a very, very accurate cross towards his teammate. And of course, with that kind of cross, it was going to be, it wasn't going to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Fair for that ball to not have gone into the back of the net. So Harris, gets a touch to it with the header. He's able to lift that ball enough to make a very accurate, awesome parabola over Tyler Derrick, who was just kind of left flat-footed because really there wasn't anything he could have done. Right? Even if he'd gone and thrown himself, the ball was going too high for him to even make something. And sometimes you look at it and it's like, oh, okay, I think that ball is going to go over the crossbar. But it felt just enough where it went in like right at the corner, right? So it was impossible for Tyler Derrick. Obviously, in the past he could have done something better. Although it's easy for us to say because we're just watching, from the stadium seats. But I think he himself, and we'll talk about it later on in the second segment of Kema no Kemaka, we'll talk about what Tyler Derrick's reaction was as far as the game is concerned. So, like I said, Louisville City gets the first goal, and it was around the 32nd minute by Wilson Harris. And right off the bat, I was like, oh boy, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah, exactly. They get that first goal, and it was just, I wouldn't even say it was pure chaos because it wasn't. It was just RGVFC making mistakes technically and just getting on each other's nerves. It wasn't players from Louisville City getting under RGVFC's skin. And that's something that was frustrating to me. Even, of course, like you said, we'll get into it a lot later, but hearing that from players saying that they were just not happy with each other was interesting, kind of. And there's not much else to say about that first goal, and there's not much else to say about that first half. It was just one of those playing medium first halves in a sense. It was not anything special from RGVFC.
Mm-hmm. So I'm trying to get the analysis from John Morrissey of USL Tactics of that game, because I think he brought up a couple of good points. He does mention obviously that RGV is good at the press, but Louisville City was just very offensive talented. Another thing I did want to mention is and it became clear every time Manny Perez went up to attack out on that right flank for Louisville City, was how narrow RGVFC is. You saw, like, if Manny Perez was like touching the touch line, out on the sideline, Akeem O'Connor-Ward was like basically inside the box. There was nobody out there. You did not see Christian Pinzon with that defensive sacrifice to kind of help limit Manny Perez outside. So I think that gave too much freedom to Manny Perez, as I mentioned before. But also he said, he talks as well, in defense, there was a lot of rotation behind him, and they were able to limit the amount of balls that Fjellberg and Christian Pinzon were able to get, especially when RGV tried to go with the lob the ball over to those two, which is usually what they do. And so it was just overall a frustrating first half for RGV FC. However, in the second half, and recall what I told you when the game had started, when I saw that that Louisville City was playing the high pressure, I said very few teams, and mostly it's like elite teams in Europe where their fitness is like world class, elite. Very few teams can withstand 90 plus minutes of high pressure. If Louisville City is going to be employing the high pressure early, eventually they're gonna have to back off, right? And play a little bit looser. That's what happened in the second half. In the second half, Wilmer makes some adjustments. He talks to his players, gets them, as Tyler Derrick mentioned, lights fire under them. And RGV starts getting more possession, starts getting more opportunities on goal. And so RGVFC continued to fight. They limited the amount of chances that Louisville City had against them. They made Kyle Morton actually work, especially like almost at stoppage time. Unfortunately for the Toros, especially in that 94th or the 95th minute opportunity from Akeem O'Connor-Ward, Kyle Morton's reflexes were just too good, and they weren't able to defeat Kyle Morton in goal. That shot from Akeem O'Connor-Ward gets deflected, and somehow Kyle Morton has the reflexes to move his legs and be able to kick that ball out when he had already thrown himself past where the path of the ball was going to towards goal. So there was a lot of improvements, like we mentioned in the second half, but it just wasn't enough for RGVFC to be able to get the equalizer. So it was a frustrating day for the fans, especially considering that you would be going up against the second team in the Eastern Conference, Memphis 901, which we'll be talking about later.
Yeah, very frustrating game. Not much else to say, really, Edson. The second half was such a big improvement. It was nice to see RGVFC being able to do that. Yes, a couple of things could have been better by Wilmer Cabrera, for sure, in the substitution category, but it's also true. Who else does he really have on the bench to substitute exactly the players that he ended up substituting at the times? Maybe he switches up the substitutions, subs one of those players before the other a little bit earlier. Could be nice, because you can't leave it too late. One of them, I think, was a good time. Is like it was around what was it, like 68th, close to 70th minute?
Yeah, it was the 69th minute. Nice.
69th minute. So
nice.
Trying to be professional there, but you said it, so you're the one. But yeah, it could have been a little bit earlier, but I think that's okay. That's okay to have, 20 minutes of fresh legs. I think that's really when you need it the most. Now, I will say this as well, Edson. The referee.
Oh boy, here we go once again.
But it was also said by Wilmer. And I also took the time It did not add up to 5 minutes. So I started at about 10 seconds late. And they said 5 minutes of added time.
Correct.
Where they got 5 minutes of added time, first off, is beyond me because it should have been 8. Would they have given 8 minutes? It should have been. I mean, there's a player on the ground during.
No, I get you. I was just doing that. I don't know if you guys see the Wilmer gif when he was at the Dynamo and they added 8 minutes against Portland. And it was like red. But I get your point. I mean, I get your point that the referee was horrible. But then again, if you ask Louisville City fans, then they're gonna be like, well, RGV just kept spending the second half, fouling our players, trying to get them injured, yada, yada, yada. I mean, you saw that from a couple of fans from Louisville City out on social media complaining that the referee was too lenient on RGV FC when it came to the fouls.
Yeah, and I'll even say this. The referee, I think, was great letting both teams play on, not just RGV FC, but letting both teams play on. It could have been much worse for both. Yeah, I'm just going to put that out there. But yes, in the in the added time, when you say that you're supposed to give it 5 additional minutes and that is minimum, give the minimum time. Don't cut 30 seconds off. I mean, RGVFC might not have scored in those 30 seconds. Probably not. But my point is, that's the integrity of the freaking game.
Mm-hmm.
That it's right on the edge of that's not that big of a deal, but at the same time, it's like, come on.
So
wait 30 seconds.
So I'm looking at the chat, and by the way, huge shout out to Jorge Peña Jr. He says hello from McAllen, Texas, and Ray Silva says hi from Fort Texas. He says we need to try and get you some Toros gear. That's what Ray says. He says, I cannot agree on the frustrating department because you want your schedule to be this way when you want to measure yourself to the best. I'm not saying that the schedule is frustrating. What I said was frustrating was the fact that RGVFC had opportunities to score and they weren't able to, but it wasn't because of lack of trying or the lack of talent like in the beginning of the season. Simply put, Cal Morton was a beast. There's a reason why he's considered the best goalkeeper right now in the USL Championship. So that's what I meant by frustrating. For the fans at the stadium, they wanted to see, the Toros win. And then considering the fact, that they're trying to get some playoffs, obviously it was going to feel a little bit frustrating. I'm not necessarily be like, oh, why did they give us Memphis? Why did they give us Louisville? I think Christian Pinzon said it best, or Juan Pablo Torres last week. He said, it's a good thing because we have a good parameter of where we're at compared to the best in the league. So I don't think necessarily the scheduling was a bad idea. I welcome it, and we'll talk more about reactions later on.
Considering San Diego,
we
played against them.
Yeah. Now I do want to say though something, because you mentioned the substitutions, and I'm going to go through this real quick. So he only made 2. Wilmer Cabrera only made 2 substitutions. I kind of question why. So he, like you mentioned, he takes out Gringo Torres, who. Honestly, I think he was more busy yelling at his teammates or frustrated than actually trying to make some good a good performance out on the field. So, but you bring in Frank Gaviria. Is that Gaviria? Really? What is he gonna bring? So you're I don't know. I have yet to see good soccer from Frank Gaviria, and it's like. I understand you kind of want more presence up on top, but when you've got your big player, Frank Gaviria, going out onto the sidelines, kind of getting in the way of Fieldberg or Christian Pinzon, what the hell? What's the point? What's the point of having Frank Gaviria? He can't get a good cross. I think the only thing good that I saw from him, he was able to attract a couple of fouls here and there right outside the box, but that's pretty much about it. So I didn't understand why Frank Gaviria was put into the game. And then you wait until the 90th minute, so in stoppage time, to bring in Ollie Wright. And when you saw Ollie Wright in the field, you saw the impact of his speed right away. Mm-hmm. And it's like, man, I think it should have been switched. I think it should have been Ollie Wright in the 70th minute, and then Frank Gaviria out in the 90th. Like if you want to get some crosses in or something like that. But it's just we in this game, it's just one of those things where we're back to criticizing Wilmer Cabrera. And I mean, it's easy for us because they lost, and now we're focusing on the mistakes, right? But even if they won, I still don't get the whole Frank Gaviria thing. Unfortunately, we've heard nothing about what's going on with Frank Lopez. He wasn't on the bench, and so I don't think we'll ever know what's going on with Frankie. Is he injured again? Did he have a fallout with Wilmer? I don't know, and it's not good to speculate. But that does limit your chances, especially when you've pretty much relegated Adolfo Hernandez merecidamente, obviously deservedly, in outside of the 18, right? And then because you also had on the pitch, obviously you had Colin Miller, Robert Coronado, Frank Nadarce, Isidro Martinez, and Juan Pablo Torres. If you were gonna take out Gringo Torres, you could have brought in
for sure Coronado.
Coronado or even Juan Pablo Torres, similar positions, but I guess it was just we talked about, well, it's because Wilmer doesn't change, his tactics or his formation when it's up against. So I get his intention. He wanted to do something different. It seemed like it was working, but I just felt like personnel wise, it was like, I guess to sum it up, I just hate, or not hate. I think hate's too much of a strong word, but I'm just not convinced too much of Frank Gaviria. But I understand. I'm starting to understand Wilmer's intentions, but it just didn't 100% work out for him. And my big gripe wasn't that, like the change in formation. My gripe is the player and the fact you had more substitutes that you could have used, and you only ended up using 2 when you have up to 5 still. So
exactly.
Anyway, the Toros end up losing 1-0 at home. So now we move on to the next game, which happened yesterday at AutoZone Park, another baseball stadium. And so obviously Memphis get an early goal in the second minute off of a free kick, in which it was an early free kick that it was just frustrating to see, but it was a good foul. So Malloy gets the shot straight towards the keeper, hits the post, and on the rebound, it seemed like nobody was paying attention to number 18, which was Jeremy Kelly, and they kind of just let him receive the ball at the penalty spot and shoot. So the interesting thing about it is that Jeremy Kelly was actually behind the wall of the Toros.
Yeah.
And so when the shot happens, it's like nobody reacted to see that, this guy's all alone. He was right behind us. It was a split-second decision, obviously, yeah. But you've got to have somebody that is aware of what's going on within the box, and hey, well, this guy's free, this guy's behind us. Somebody needs to come in and make sure that he's not roaming around the area or interfering too much with us as the wall to create some danger on our goal. So I think that was some. I think that was just some oversight on the defense, because and obviously, like we're going to talk about later, it was an alternative team that was fielded yesterday at Memphis 901. However, despite it being an alternative lineup, for the most part, RGV had clear chances on goal, especially in the second half of the first half.
Yeah, and not even during that time. It looked like for the first minute when that first goal was scored by Memphis, even RGV FC had a chance before that too. It's what it looked like. At least, me watching the start of the game, that's what it seemed like, for sure. But in that second half of the first half, they woke up. And especially after that first goal, they kind of got in rhythm. Yes, it could have been much worse in that first half, too, because the defense did let up a little bit, and there were almost a couple of goals. But for the most part, they were able to clean up their defensive side and have an opportunity to get a couple of chances done on the offensive side to try and tie it up going into halftime.
So Memphis in that first half, they only had 5 shots, obviously the goal being one of them, but they had 2 off-target shots, the goal and another shot from way outside that was on target, and a block shot as well. RGVFC, like I mentioned, middle of in the first half, they kind of woke up, and in total, I believe they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 shots. 8 shots total. 3 of them off target, which was, I think, in a span of 5 minutes at the end of the first half, where Isidro Martinez had some clear opportunities that he either skied or he sent it just a bit wide. But it's just those opportunities that, especially when you're a midfielder that lost your starting position, you're given an opportunity to start when it comes to in a moment where the team is being rotated for fatigue or whatever kind of purposes. This is your time to shine and show Wilmer Cabrera, hey, I can fight for a starting position as well. And yeah, he might be a midfielder, but if you're in front of goal, you got to put those opportunities in the back of the net, especially from the positions where 2 of those 3 were pretty much right in front of goal. So RGVFC, and outside of those 3 shots, the rest of the 5 were actually blocked by the Memphis defense. So RGVFC, considering this team probably didn't have a lot of time playing together as a unit outside of practice, they kind of made Memphis 901, look like a worse team that their standings usually say, considering the fact that this Memphis 901 team defeated Louisville City, who we lost against in the game previous to this one. So I gotta commend to the players. I know I was kind of like frustrated to see, why are we going with alternative lineup, yada yada yada. But this is what we want to see. How many times did RGVFC in previous years rotate for these kind of purposes, and the second and third stringers just shit the bed, Yeah. So it was refreshing to see that that these players, continue to at least try to enforce their play style on Memphis 901, despite not having a lot of time together.
Yeah. And real quick, just looking at the lineup from when RGVFC played against El Paso Locomotive, which we can say at that time when they did and beat El Paso seemed like a better team. I still think that El Paso is one of the better teams in the Western Conference. They might miss it, but we all know that's going to be expected in just an all-out brawl, basically for 7th, 6th, and 5th place in the Western Conference. I mean, it was Ricky Ruiz, Pinzon, Icaza, Fjellberg, Torres, Cabezas. So it wasn't a crazy lineup, but you had Jonathan Ricketts and Acque and Pimentel. So you had a couple of players that didn't normally at least start, and they were in that lineup and all of a sudden showed up. So on the road, for some strange reason, RGVFC are always able to show up even with whatever type of lineup.
Jacob, that all of those players that you just mentioned for the El Paso game, they're all technically been starting. They're regular starters, because you're talking about RGVFC that in this game played Tyler Derrick, obviously is a starter, right? The experience, but they have Luka Milosevic, Robert Coronado, Frank Nadarcy, Wahab Acque, another starter, Daniel Luis Saez, Isidro Martinez, Emilio Icaza, another starter, Juan Pablo Torres, Ollie Wright, and Frank Gaviria. So you're pretty much saying that out of that 11, only 3 of them are regular starters. Everything else is just pretty much second and third stringers in this match against Memphis 901, which we'll talk about later on real quick. So let me just do a quick recap of this game, and then we'll go on to the analysis of quotes and, of course, this decision. So unfortunately, Daniel Luis Saez gets injured in the 20th minute of the match. It was pretty much a self-injury. You might, I guess you can say, you might want to attribute it to the baseball field. You never know. But Daniel Luis Saez gets a serious injury in his leg. He was unable to walk. I think the broadcast cameras showed him being loaded on into a stretcher. The play-by-play commentators mentioned that he was probably going to have to be taken to a local clinic or hospital to get evaluated. We don't know exactly what happened, but it looked like a serious injury. So we kind of wish Daniel Luis Saez a speedy recovery, because it's never good when no matter which player it is, to lose him and not have him available when needed, especially when we're about to enter the playoffs. But second half, you started to see a little bit of a change in transition of the momentum of the game. Unfortunately, Memphis 901 was able to get a second goal. And it all was based, and I don't know if you said it in the chat, Jacob, when it happened, but there was some confusion between Juan David Cabezas, who had gone in as a center back for Daniel Luis Saez because of the injury, and Wahab Akwe. There was some confusion in that goal, because it looked like they weren't able to figure out who was supposed to mark Kisido, because you see, like he gets the ball through the midfield. Wahab Akwe is following number 10. It looks like, and so Kisidu moves towards his left, but Wahab Akwe continued to follow number 10. Juan David Cabezas, you would assume, like, okay, 10's coming towards me. Now he's my man. But you see Wahab Akwe still coming over here, right? So by the time Wahab Akwe turns around and realizes Kisidu was able to cut outside, get past Wahab Akwe, and get that shot towards the top bin of the left-hand corner, impossible for Tyler Derrick to score. It's one of those things, once again, where we talk about, the lack of the lack of communication, the lack of chemistry. Yes, Juan David Cabezas is an occasional starter, or is a usual starter, but he usually plays as a defensive midfielder, not as a center back. And so there's not a lot of chemistry between Wahab Akwe and Juan David Cabezas as a center back pairing. So the synchronization just wasn't there in that goal.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, very frustrating for that second goal, just the way it was, because RGV FC up until that point, besides being down 1 goal, seemed like they were in control for a bit. We were able to kind of calm things down. And then, of course, just one opportunity, and all of a sudden, Memphis are able to get that second goal because of miscommunication again. So all in all, for that was frustrating, but it did. For me, I'm gonna be honest. I felt like it was done. I felt like there were more goals to come from the from Memphis 901. I didn't feel like 2-0 was over, and so I kind of stopped watching, but stayed with it and then watched the highlights afterwards, to my deep surprise. But yeah, all of a sudden RGV started to play even more and get more and more chances to try and get back into this.
Yeah. So the second half comes. Then Wilmer Cabrera, after that goal, which would happen in the 55th minute, the second goal by Kisidu, that's when Wilmer Cabrera decides to react. And 3 minutes later, so in the 58th minute, he makes 3 substitutions, takes out Luka Malasevich to bring in Jonathan Ricketts, takes out Frank Gaviria to bring in Ricky Reese, and also take out Ollie Wright to bring in Christian Pinzon. And right off the bat, you saw their immediate impact of Ollie and Gelberg and Pinzon on the havoc that they could wreak on Memphis 901. I know at the time when I saw the substitution, I was like, oh yeah, now he reacts. Now that we're 2-0, Wilmer Cabrera's reacting and making substitutions, right? But it worked really well for RGV FC. They started to dominate possession a lot more. In fact, in the second half, RGV FC outshot Memphis 901 8-3. So they controlled the ball and the momentum of the game so well that really Memphis really didn't do a lot outside of the goal. Because in fact, after the goal was scored, there was only one shot and it was off target by Memphis. Everything else, it was all RGV FC. So it's one of those things where, like, imagine if we had our starting 11 since the beginning, what could have happened in this game? Because even then, RGVFC continued to push. They got two deflections that worked in their favor that ended up going into the back of the net. So, and then in the last couple of minutes, Brinson had a couple of opportunities to get the game-winning goal. But in this case, once again, you had Trey Muse having a good showing to keep things level for Memphis 901 FC. But like I said, it's just one of those things. Well, what could have happened if we had played originally with our starters? Now, is the question, was it due to fatigue? Is it due to the baseball stadium? We don't know. Only Wilmer Cabrera knows. So having said that, let's go with our new segment, Quema no Quema. Obviously, Jacob, you don't have to say it, but basically, this is our version of spot on, spot off from Door Bumper Clear. Basically, quema means that you agree, and then you explain why. No quema means you disagree with the quote or whatever the topic is, and then you say your reasons. So the first thing we're going to talk about, we'll harken back to the game against Louisville City, and this is a quote by Wilmer Cabrera. He said, and this is talking about Louisville and how they played that match. He says, they wanted to tackle and make runs all night. They played evenly, pressured us, and came after us to try to win the game. We did not have that vision to match up with them in the first 45 minutes. I never saw my team comfortable in the first half. There were too many mistakes and unforced errors. The goal for them came from a passing error on our part. At halftime, we made adjustments and improved, but in these types of games, one goal is enough to put it away or lose. Quema no quema.
I agree. I definitely agree. It was one of those games where we saw it pitch side. We saw it, how RGVFC, how much they improved in the second half, but still could not do anything after, just after, in that second half. The locker room talk seemed to have worked somewhat before the substitutions actually happened. And enough said, one goal puts it away, and RGVFC can't even attack in the second half. And so, yeah.
I agree. Yo digo que quema. I agree as well, because to me, and I know some of the reporters that we were with down there at field level, they were saying as well, I think it was Alfredo or Bella, I don't remember who exactly, but they mentioned that, it seemed to him that the team looked a little bit overconfident after the last four goals, or the last four wins that they had accumulated so far, and they were kind of caught by surprise by Louisville City and the way that they played. And when you're fighting for a playoff position, especially when you got the opportunity to go up against the best of the best, you can't give them those opportunities to have pretty much basically a free first half. Right, if you're starting to see your opposing team do something, you have to adapt and overcome. That goes obviously on the players on inside the pitch, but also on Wilmer Cabrera to not wait until the second half to make the necessary adjustments. But I think the fact that he talked to the players and kind of woke them up from their trance or whatever they were at. It worked. It just wasn't enough. And fortunately, the results outside of, around the Western Conference kind of have been helping them so far this season. But you're putting yourself in a really good risk, and a really bad risk right there when you give them your opponents some free opportunities. It's these kind of adversaries. So you give them an inch, they'll take a mile, pretty much. Yep. Right. So moving on, Tyler Derrick says, with the team that we put out there, I think we just came off really, really slow. And then it took Wilmer to light a fire under us at halftime for us to really start to compete in the second half. But we can't come out in the first half and compete like that and expect to make playoffs. Starting for myself, poor first half. I put my hand up first and say that it needs to be better on my part.
Yeah, even for Derek, yes, I don't think he can save that goal. Let's be real, but he's a leader. We've seen it. You and I have seen it with Houston Dynamo. How much of a leader he is with that team, or with Houston. How much he yelled at the players to be that field general, to be better when it came to those sides. He already at during that game made key saves too. But just talking about his full quote, it's true. They have to be better. They came off slow, and Louisville City, well, just like their high pressure offense, broke them first in that first half. And then just going back to, you cannot let your emotions get the best of you, especially when you're playing with your freaking family. That's, of course, a different quote, but it's true. You can't get mad at each other. And sure enough, they did. It's like, back in Fairly Odd Parents, when it was that basketball team with Doug Dimmadome.
Mm-hmm.
They were the most selfish basketball players ever.
Yeah.
Like that. You can't be that way.
Yeah, definitely. I think Yo Kakema, Tyler Derrick is showing that he is a leader, setting the example, not trying to pin the blame on anybody else, but okay, I man up. I messed up in that play. That is not my benchmark. That is not that. I can be better than that. For the sake of the team, talked about, like you mentioned as well, try to get the team to calm down and be positive, right? And not be, destructive against each other, but more of the, he talked about constructive criticism. I don't know if he was mentioning the media or just, the team in general, but he did mention that we have to be positive about this. We are a family as a team, and we need to act like one. And it is my duty as a leader to make sure that everybody is following the same path. So I agree with Tyler Derrick. Yeah, it could have been. It was his fault technically in that play, but the fact that he is still able to lead this team and continue to make some good saves when needed. I know there was one that I think it was like almost right in front of goal from the occasional shots that Louisville City took, and he was able to get some good saves there to keep it at 1-0 and make it a bearable result to try to come back from for the rest of his team. So moving on, Eric Pimentel, and this is translated from Spanish. So he said, so I asked him, how's the locker room feeling after this loss? And he said, the team is taking the loss at a certain point well, because we're realizing that we still need to improve. We need to play like we did in the second half, not relaxing, continuing the level of performances that we were executing. Sometimes it's good to get tripped up before the playoffs begin, to focus on the fact that we have 3 more games left to clinch playoffs and enter the playoffs with good momentum, which is most important.
Yeah, I agree. This loss couldn't have come at a better time, because there were still games, and it was against the number 1 team. And he's completely right. I know you and I talked about it post game too. Just, there's still so much work to be done before the playoffs for RGV FC, whether or not they make it. They're in this spot right now. Yes, of course, past Memphis. They sit in 6th place. Now, will they keep that 6th place? I don't know. Will there be some collusion with USL and LA Galaxy too? Who's to say? Because if that game is played past decision day, then there's some issues. That's all I'm going to say about that. But it's true. It's like that loss came at a good time, because it was against the number 1 team. They can show, hey, guess what? You lost to San Antonio, you drew against San Antonio FC earlier this year for a reason. You lost to them at home for a reason. Y'all are not there just yet. So it's good for them to get extra practice in and make sure that they make the playoffs, B, are ready for most likely San Diego Loyal, and C, just, again, hope for the best after that, because they'll be ready.
I feel I somewhat agree with Eric Pimentel. I don't agree that the fact that this is a the good result. I don't think. I mean, he didn't say that, but it's
No,
definitely not a good result.
Yeah.
But what I do agree is that this is a case of humble pie for the Toros. That that they're not at that level yet to compete against the best of the best. There's minute details they need to iron out. Yeah, but it's like we've said before, just because you win, you're not the best team in the world. And just because you lose, you're not the worst team in the world, right? Mm-hmm. So it kind of gives them a reality check moving on to the last 3 games of this regular season. So there's that about Eric Pimentel. Now, here comes the bread and potatoes. Wilmer Cabrera fields a second-string lineup to start against Memphis 901, despite stating on numerous occasions that the team cannot let off the gas for the rest of the season or keep on making mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, no, some would agree with this, but don't agree. Well, I don't agree that. I agree with the lineup that he put out there yesterday for a reason. Because they have a game coming up on Saturday and need their starters to be ready for most likely getting 3 points. That's how I feel about it, especially against Phoenix, which has had RGV FC's numbers for years until last season or until last postseason with the playoffs. They have had numerous times coming to RGV FC and being able to pick up at least 1 point. So I get that. But yeah, it is true. It's like, guess what? They haven't had enough minutes for them to be perfect to where they can't make mistakes. So whether or not it's 45 minutes, you better put the best 5 you can do out onto the field and make a completely different look. And you better hope and pray that they know their roles with the different tactics that you're going to have to put out there if you want them to be freaking, amazing and not making mistakes. So that's where it's, somewhat agree and somewhat disagree, because I get it, but also they're going to make mistakes.
I disagree with Wilmer. I understand why.
Yeah.
The risk of injury, because of the pitch, because of fatigue. You want to rest them up against these 2 very important matches, but this is an important match as well against Memphis 901, right? Mm-hmm. And then you couple it with the fact that Wilmer, like I mentioned, stated many times, we cannot let off the gas. We have to continue pushing. We have to continue fighting. We have to do our best that we can. We always have to give it our 100% in order to be able to get the good results to qualify for the playoffs. And then at face value, you see an alternative lineup. Well, what the hell's going on? Are we all in or are we not all in? Are we not all in? But with Daniel Luis's injury, like I mentioned, the guys at the Stampede, I understand. Because it easily could have been Pimentel. It easily could have been Fjellberg. It easily could have been Gringo Torres. And those are key players in our starting 11 that are key to the functionality of RGVFC as we get into the playoffs. So there's the reason I may be kind of grasping at straws, trying to kind of play devil's advocate on myself, and I think it's a very valid reason, but at face value, considering, like I mentioned, the quotes that he has said in previous weeks, there's a little bit of an incongruency right there. But it worked out for Wilmer at the end. He was able to give 45 plus minutes of rest to our key starters. When you bring him in, they got you a really good 1 point that keeps you in the fights and actually in 6th place in the Western Conference. So overall, it worked out for Wilmer. He gets the final laugh in this, but there's still a long way to go before he can call victory. And I hope he succeeds. Don't get me wrong. I don't want him to fail. I want him to succeed. It's just one of those things where you're looking at it from the couch or something. It's like, what the hell's going on, right? And as a fan, we're entitled to think that. I thought that too, but it just became apparent the reason why he did that. So it worked out at the end for him. It could have worked out even better. But at the same time, I'm just glad it didn't happen like in previous years where it was like you put in your second and third stringers and you end up losing like 5-0 or something to Real Monarchs. And that was embarrassing, So anyway, so moving on, like I said, this Saturday, RGV FC versus Phoenix Rising. Phoenix Rising coming in with 2 games, a 2-game win streak. They defeated Sacramento Republic 1-0, and they defeated the Baby Bulls 5-1. So they're coming in on fire. They still have a possibility to become or to get a playoff spot, but they are kind of like an outlier out there. So they have everything to win and nothing to lose at this moment. And it's those kind of teams that are the most dangerous. And the players have said it themselves when they were talking about Charleston. So it's going to be very important. This is why it's important. This game is important about Phoenix Rising. This game could decide the fate of Phoenix Rising if they make it to the playoffs or not. And this is why. So if RGVFC defeat Phoenix Rising, Phoenix is officially eliminated from playoff contention as the maximum points that they can accumulate will only be 42, which is 1 point below 8th place El Paso Locomotive, who currently have 43. And they are outside of the playoffs looking in at this moment with 6 points to go for them. So with the win against Phoenix, RGV will jump to 46 points, which will obligate Monterey Bay to win 6 points in their last 2 matches. 3 of those points is against RGVFC in the regular season finale. So you understand why the victory is important, because if you get the win against Phoenix Rising, you're putting Monterey Bay kind of like in their last breaths going into the match, which is also going to be very dangerous because there's still an opportunity if and only if they win against FC Tulsa and Oakland and El Paso don't get a victory. I put everything. I was trying to analyze that during the day. I put on Twitter. It was just, there's just so many variables, but that was kind of the things that I kind of understood. So check out my thread on my Twitter page at @EOchoa_8. So in the case of a draw against Phoenix, RGV will jump to 44 points. Phoenix could be eliminated this weekend with that result if either Oakland or El Paso win or draw this Saturday, as this result would set them at 40 points with a max points possible of 43 for Phoenix. If either Oakland or El Paso draw, they jump to 44 points, right? But overall, if RGVFC want to qualify for the playoffs, they have to win all 6 remaining points. Even if both Oakland and El Paso also win their last 2 games, RGV has head-to-head advantage over both Oakland and El Paso. Any other results will force them to depend on results from other teams below them in the Western Conference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you said it best. There's nothing else for me to really say on that, too. It's 6 points or bust, basically, is how I feel about this, which means start your best 11 every single week or every single game from here on out. The pitch better be in top tip condition. It really barely matters about New Mexico and the Los Dos game now. Because you got to factor in that they're technically still alive, hanging on by a thread, just like Phoenix Rising are. You will basically eliminate Phoenix Rising if you win. And yeah, basically repeating what you say. So yeah, it has to be a win. RGVFC are more than capable of beating this team, especially a team that's in shambles for the first time almost in club history is how it feels.
So having said this, Jacob, what is your prediction for this Saturday?
Prediction, I'm going to say not a lot of goals, and I'm going to say RGVFC escape with a 1-0 victory.
Okay. Ray says regular prediction, Phoenix 2, RGV 3. I'm going to go with 2-1. I think a 2-1 victory. I think Babukar Jai's speed is still lethal enough to cause
For sure.
to cause an opportunity on goal for Phoenix Rising. Like I mentioned, they're starting to gain a lot of momentum now with their new coach that they poached from Oakland Roots, but that's neither here nor there. And so at the end of the day, Phoenix Rising, yeah, they're kind of outside looking in, but they're still traditionally they're a dangerous team. You know, they defeated us at their home. So
right after they fired their coach.
Yeah. So, and now they're starting to kind of get a groove on, kind of understand his tactics and what he wants from this team. So, they're still very dangerous. Got to give them the respect that they deserve, but I'm still going to go with a 2-1 victory over Phoenix Rising. Now, bold prediction, Jacob.
Bold prediction. Well, I just saw that there's a chance of rain tomorrow. So I'm going to go with the rain prediction again. It's going to be a really good amount of rain. But no lightning. So that means play on as long as the field does not get flooded.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a dirty, dirty match. Couple red cards, yes. Because, well, I mean, you're playing in wet conditions. You slide and you accidentally have your studs up, clock somebody's ankle. Mm-hmm. Red card, you're out. So both will be playing with 10 men. Haven't given my score yet because, wait for it, it's going to be a goal fest. Somehow, some way, the rain proves to be the key for RGV FC and Phoenix Rising to get a lot of goals. 6-5 final score, RGV FC win.
Ooh. My bold prediction, 3-0 Phoenix Rising. I think that's all I have to say. Phoenix Rising is very dangerous, and I feel like despite the RGVC being a good, solid defensive unit, they've gotten their groove on really well offensively as well. Now you have Ollie Wright as a substitute for Christian Pinzon when needed it. So it's going to be really, really bold for all of that to kind of, for RGVC to kind of forget everything that they've done so far and just completely fall in shambles against Phoenix Rising. So yeah, my bold prediction is going to be 3-0 win for Phoenix Rising. And I hope that does not happen because, oh boy. It's gonna make the end of the season very, very interesting for everybody in the Western Conference.
Yep.
So, with that said, Ray Silva says, bold prediction, Phoenix 0, RGV FC forward 4. So he went the opposite direction of my bold prediction. He also says RGV magic number is 6 points. It can happen with losses from Monterey Bay and Oakland Roots. Abraham says, rain in an all-white party. It's going to be very, very interesting.
That's right. Yeah, all white.
By the way, I will say this: if you guys are going to be watching the broadcast, there's going to be a new graphic that I kind of helped create for the lineup. It's gonna be of better quality. Unfortunately, the template kind of sucks, but I am proud to say that kit graphic that appears during the lineups. If it's the actual all white, like with the white shirt, the white shorts, and the white socks, yeah, that was made by me. So I'm kind of really proud of that. I was asked to be able to help them with that graphic, considering I guess they've seen my stuff with the FIFA mods. But guys, that's going to be it for this episode. I actually have to run real quick because we've got the recording of the Striker Texas podcast with Jonathan Check and Joe Rodriguez. So, Jacob, any final thoughts before we go?
Excited for Saturday. I should be there, feeling great. Other than that, 6 points is the magic number, and that's it. Must win from here on out.
Where can they find you?
Find me at Jake Young 456 on Twitter, the Overreacted Gamer on YouTube.
All right, and you can find me at @eochoa_8 on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. And be sure to follow Down in the Valley at Down in the RGV on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and on TikTok. If you guys are listening to the audio podcast, don't forget Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. we will be live on the Down in the Valley YouTube channel, youtube.com/Down in the Valley. And if you guys are watching the live stream right now on Facebook or on YouTube, if you guys missed any part of the episode, you can check out the archive, but you can also check out the audio podcast on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, or whatever your favorite podcasting platform is. You can check out the audio version there. So if you're driving, from here to the grocery store, you're making a long trip over to Houston or San Antonio, turn on the Down in the Valley podcast and listen to us kind of ramble on about the Toros. I mean, it's fun to do it, and we'd like to chat with y'all and communicate. And if you guys see us at the stadium on Saturday, don't hesitate to say hi to us, of course. Hope to have a fun one on Saturday night. Jacob, thank you so much for tuning in. Abraham, Ray, everybody that tuned in. Of course, Jorge Peña. Thank you all for the support of the Down in the Valley podcast. We'll see each other next Wednesday, for the next episode of the Down in the Valley podcast. Have a good night.